Hi there, everybody. Welcome to Module 4, where we are talking about our third executive function, flexible thinking. So today we are going to talk about what even is flexible thinking. This might be an executive function that you've never heard of before. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about how flexible thinking can kind of go wrong, aka how it can become an executive dysfunction, and how to cope with dysfunction in this area. So what is flexible thinking and why exactly do we need it? Flexible thinking is our ability to go with the flow. Flexible thinking is being able to adjust to small changes quickly and feeling comfortable with nuance and ambiguity. So what this basically boils down to is when things change in your life, how do you react? Are you able to react to change with an embrace, being able to say, I'm excited that this is changing because I understand that that is the nature of being human, right? We change, we develop, we grow. And that's just part of not just our overall lives, but also daily life. And are you able to accept that and move with the change? Or do you find yourself resisting it? If you do find yourself resisting it, we'll talk more about that in a minute. But if you do find yourself sort of like, yeah, I can accept change, I can move with the changes in my life, then flexible thinking might actually be an executive function that's really strong for you. And that's great. Being comfortable with nuance and ambiguity means that you are comfortable realizing that life is not cookie cutter, which is probably seems like an oversimplification. Obviously, it's not cookie cutter. You know, we all know this. Life is complex. Life is complicated. But sometimes our brains, in order to make the processing requirements a little lower, we'll try to oversimplify things. And we take the nuance and ambiguity out of situations and we try to say they're black and white. And that's where we run into troubles with flexible thinking. So what is inflexible thinking? Basically, it's the fear of the unknown. You know, when we struggle with flexible thinking, we're often afraid of the unknown. We feel safest when things fit into neat categories. And when things aren't black and white, we struggle to make sense of the world. So if you tend to struggle with your flexible thinking, I just want you to know that it's okay. Really and genuinely, it is okay, because so many of us do. Black and white thinking is a huge sign of many different mental illnesses and neurodivergencies, because so many of us in this life struggle with the fear of the unknown, especially when we have experienced trauma. So a lot of times, folks with mental illness or neurodivergencies, we go into the world with certain needs. And we often find that those needs are not met because they are not neurotypical needs. They are not normal needs, quote unquote. And as a result, we don't get our needs met. And so we often feel like we are facing the unknown. And as a way to cope with that as a child, we categorized things into black or white. And that continued into our adulthood as we continued to not get our needs met. So what is the secret? How can we cope? We'll get to that in a minute, but you might be guessing, yes, it is getting your needs met. That is a huge aspect of developing more flexible thinking. So, like I said before, this often looks like black and white thinking, which can lead to an oversimplified view of life. And I would argue that this idea that black and white thinking is bad and you're a bad person for thinking that way is black and white thinking, because that's way oversimplified. You are not a bad person for this thinking style, this thinking pattern. This is something that was ingrained in you from an early age, most likely. And it's something that's going to take a little while to unlearn, but you are absolutely capable of it, I promise. So, how do we cope with inflexible thinking? There are two main ways to cope that I personally have found very useful. The first one is a journaling method that I actually made up, and it's called How It Feels versus How It Is. And to me, this is it's like a validating form of cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm not a huge fan of CBT, but I feel that this is a really validating way to do it. So what you're going to do is you're going to pull out your journal, and on one page on the left, you are going to write down how it feels about everything going on in your life. If you have to, make categories like work, home, hobbies, like whatever is going on in your life. And I want you to write down how it feels, what is going on in your internal life, and screw what's going on in the real world. Do not incorporate that into this side of the journal at all. This is all of your black and white thinking can come spewing out on this side of the page. And then on the right side, I want you to write how you think it actually is. I want you to write, how do I think a neutral observer would see this? Not your mom, not your friends, not people who hate you, none of those people, but a truly neutral observer. What would they say is going on? A compassionate neutral observer, someone who, can see that you're a person and cares about, your needs, but is still neutral and sees the world as close to as it is as possible. Objective reality is, kind of hard to hold on to. It's a bit of a slippery thing, but as close as you can get. And then honestly, close the journal. You don't have to reread them. You don't have to compare and say, look how far off my feelings are from reality. There's no need to shame yourself or anything like that. The point of this exercise is to both ground you in reality and ground you in your feelings so that you can process both and develop that flexible thinking that allows you to hold two realities in your mind at once. Right? So that's the idea. The other way that you can do this is allowing a trusted partner or friend to make small changes in your life or routine sometimes. So you can just tell your partner, like, hey, throw me a curveball sometime today. I'm working on improving my flexible thinking, like maybe change up my routine or something like that. Like, throw me some sort of curveball today. I want to see how I cope with it. And that can be a really, really great way to practice more flexible thinking. So your homework for today is to fill out the week 4 worksheet, which is available in the Thinkific portal. And thank you so much for watching.